Well, we are here. We are here, people. It's been a while. It's been a while. Look, we got the big man himself peering through the wine bottles here. We've got quite a storm going on outside, so relocated to the study this time, mixing it up. Not the outside periscope we love, but we're gonna manage in the study. How you guys doing? It's been a minute. It's been a minute. As a lot of you guys know, I was on a long trip out in the wilderness. I've got a write up on that coming soon. But but yeah, the basics for that, it was a pretty intense trip. We were looking at, I feel like it's not bright enough in here. We were looking at like 152 hours fasted, so by far the longest fast I've ever had to do. Covered about 80 miles all told. But the fatigue and the hunger, those were definitely things to grapple with. But the big stuff was the cold. I lost 10 pounds. I lost 10 pounds, and I probably gained about five of that back. Surprisingly, a lot of it was not water weight by the end. I don't know if something happens after a period of time of being fasted and exercising constantly, but I did not have a massive water weight bounce when I started eating again when I came back. But I got a lot of insights from that. But it was really good for me. Really, I mean, the spiritual element of it was really intense. Really intense. I won't go so far as to say that there was any sort of crazy visions, but I mean, I've talked before about intuition and about getting like a connection to God, and it's kind of at the point now where like I can ask questions and I can get automatic feedback if I get myself clean. So it was a very powerful experience. But yeah, I'll have stuff. The post is about half written. Um, I was contemplating not even doing this Periscope, to be honest, because I got back from the trip, had to take like 2 days to kind of recover physically, in particular on Friday. I mean, I just kind of crashed. I was feeling great, and then like late morning Friday, just complete crash. But then I had all sorts of. I've had tons and tons of catch up client work, and then I have 21 convention and 22 convention. I've got two speeches, and I got to get prepped for that. But a lot of stuff has happened since I've been gone. So I feel like we had to get a Periscope in. We just had to do one to bridge us until next week. So we'll get into that. But first, we got to go to the wine. So as you recall, we've been working on Spain. So last wines we did, Ricky. Last wines we did, we covered Rioja. We had covered Red Rioja, right? So we did Gran Reserva and we did a Reserva. And then we did White Reserva and we did Cava. Okay, Cava in Catalonia. So now we're tackling some reds from Catalonia. So for the first one, we have Terra Alta. Okay, now Terra Alta, this isn't anything, it's not a special wine. I mean, I like to think this is a pretty good version. We're going to show you again in the book here, in the atlas. So this is Catalonia. Okay, Priorat is the second most prestigious region in Spain after, remember, Rioja, which we did before. Okay. All these areas around here, mostly the black line indicates the cava, right? That's where cava, that sparkling wine, is made. But all these areas around here that you see colored are different regions of Catalonia that also produce red wine. So Terra Alta, I picked. It's not particularly important location, but I figured from what I've read about it, Terra Alta, higher altitude tends to mean that you have a little bit more interesting stuff going on. So you can see here so this is Terra Alta over here. Priorat's here in the green, and then we have Terra Alta, and here's the, Tarragon, and then we have, Barcelona, I think, all the way up here, right? So this is the Catalan coast. Okay, so Terra Alta, like most of this region, it mostly is using. It used to be known for. It produces mostly just like Grenache based wines, right? And so we'll see with, or as they call it in Spain, Garnacha. So as we'll see with this one, this is this Terra Alta right here. It's 100% Grenache, 4 months in oak. I've not tried it yet. So this is a wine that we would expect to have just be pretty simple kind of table wine that we're looking for. Maybe a little bit extra. I think this wine goes for about $14, if I recall correctly. Now, see, smelling it, you get a really interesting thing, and this happens a lot with the Spanish coast. Okay, and even though Terra Alta is actually a little bit more inland, apparently we're still getting some of this. Even though this is a high country, but it's, I guess, very hot and sunny still. What you get is you get this scent of like a cooked like a fruit peel. Like, I don't know if you guys remember growing up, I used to have all these health food store stuff because my parents wouldn't get me. My mom was ahead of her time when it came to junk food, and we didn't get any of the junk food. So the fruit peels we didn't get fruit roll ups with all the artificial coloring. What we got was some really like health food store fruit roll up thing, and it had this very very distinct smell of like a cooked fruit. And you get this a lot in regions where there's just a lot of sun on the grapes and not usually enough cooling at night to balance it out. Hungry man dinners, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that sounds appetizing to me. I feel like there's a lot of preservatives in that. So now, what's interesting, and you get this sometimes, is the bark's a bit worse than the bite because like that smell, it's not like an offensive smell. It's not a negative, but very often when you smell it, you're like about to get a wine that like not too well made from Europe. Usually from Europe. American wines are going to cover that up with oak, so you won't usually get it. But this one, you have the smell quite intensely, but when you taste it, there's actually acid on here. Bogle is good for the price, although I don't want to be a hater, but I really don't like Bogle. I don't like any of the apothic Bogle stuff. They add sugar to it. I'm never a big fan when they add sugar to this stuff. So Terra Alta wine, there's actually some decent acid, but the alcohol still, it feels very hot. Okay, like I feel it burning down my throat, and because of the heat, the flavor is kind of muted. And so this is one of the reasons why I'll go crazy getting Riojas, like basic Rioja Crianza. Basic Rioja Crianza, I get that all the time. No big deal. But I'm always very, very cautious about getting, you know, $15 and under Spanish reds from the coast, especially as you get down to Humila in the south. I don't even touch that shit because it's always cooked beyond recognition, and they're cheap. I mean, they can be like $9 sometimes, but not my thing. Now, I'm not hating on this Terra Alta. I think it's perfectly fine. I'd be very happy to have this served to me at someone's house, but the fruit is really affected by the heat, and I want to make that point, which is why you don't want it to be too hot. Now, Priorat. Okay, so Priorat's got an interesting story, so I'll give you a little bit of that. So Priorat, like I mentioned, is the second special thing you see here, DOCQ, also known as DOCA in Spanish. I think the DOCQ is Catalan indication for the same thing. These are like the super prestigious places. Okay, so we can zoom in. You see Priorat in green here. We're gonna zoom in. Okay, so the story behind Priorat. The story behind Priorat is that this is a little location that would get very, very hot and was mostly known for producing very low yield Carignan. And actually, so Carignan is kind of considered to be, or Carignana, I guess in Spanish, is considered to be generally a bulk grape. So this is a grape that they used to grow a lot in southern France. A lot of it's been torn up and removed because it doesn't produce, usually, it doesn't produce very good wine, but it does have very high yields. So if your objective as a small farmer, let's say in southern France, I'm giving you an example, because this was very common in southern France using Carignan. They would plant the fields with Carignan because the wine would be used in big bulk productions. They do things. The fucking no, that's the Catalina Islands. That's the Catalina wine mixture. That's good. Catalina, Catalan. Maybe we're gonna start the Catalan wine mixer. That was actually a really funny movie. I did rewatch Step Brothers, and I think it was, the end of Will Ferrell's journey. After that, we really tapped out, really tapped out. But so Carignan had high yields, and so when you in older periods you had these things, and they still exist, and they're usually a sign of low quality with wine in Europe, called cooperatives. And so basically what would happen is that you had all the farmers would throw all their grapes in a central cooperative, which would then mix them together into a cooperative branded wine. Now the problem, of course, is that no individual producer has any skin in the game. Thanks to Nassim Taleb, they got no skin in the game to produce actually good grapes because it's all getting thrown in together. So any individual person who's like, I want to really focus on my grapes, I want to make them really great, I want to really, care about them. It's like, well, your neighbor's throwing dead birds in with his grapes. He's doing jack shit, and all the work that you're doing is getting erased. So in some cooperatives are actually good; they have good reputations. But generally, if a region is dominated by cooperatives in the wine world, it means that it's not really developed, and it's got a lot of producers who are more farmers and less winemakers. So Priorat was like this, but a French guy, I think his name was I think I have it right here, René Barbier or whatever. Yeah, René Barbier or whatever. He French guy came over there. Maybe he was actually Catalan. I'm not sure. I think he's French though because he's connected with Clos Mogodor, which is a very famous French estate. So he basically started he saw a lot of potential in Priorat, and Priorat has this very particular type of soil, which is very dark brown, and it's made of quartz and slate. And I think this special name here, what is it called? Lichorella, so like licorice, right? And it's very, very good for maintaining water. So even though this area doesn't get a lot of water, the soil keeps it there, and so the roots can go deep and get it. And you have this old vine Carignan. So Carignan is generally kind of a crap bulk grape, but if you have really, really old vines, so what happens, I haven't told you guys this before. I've told you about yields and how you want to have low yields and you want the vines to struggle. But one of the reasons that old vine is so important when it comes to wine is because old vines, the older a vine is, the less it produces. It's just, it's like you're an old man and you got to focus on quality. You can't focus on quantity. So you have some vines that can go up to even like 100 years old, some in some locations of the world beyond. But generally, once a vine's been there for 25, 30 years, its yields drop and the concentration is really intense. So Priorat is known to be very much in contrast to Rioja, which traditionally Rioja, remember, was very oaky and thin. Priorat was very, very dark and deep. Okay. And so Priorat has a lot of Grenache or Garnacha, but it also has Carignan and can have some other varietals. So the one we have right here, you can see it's a hot guy, 14.5%. That's not a light wine. But you can see here it's 70% Grenache, and you got some Syrah. Not a lot of Carignan in this. And I kind of wish I had splurged. This is like a $35 bottle. I kind of wish I had splurged and just gone like full bore for one of the really elite estates that would have been closer to 50 or 60, just so I could give you a perfect example of this. But anyway, I can see already looking at this, there's a lot of sediment. Super good, super rich, concentrated flavor. And I really want to emphasize here the difference between these two locations, which are pretty much right next to each other, right? Let's look at this. Pretty much right next to each other. I mean, this is Terra Alta. This is Priorat. Priorat does have protection in the mountain range from stuff, but I mean, these are really close by, and just the intensity of Priorat compared to Terra Alta. Terra Alta is very simple, just a very kind of simple table wine, without a lot of terribly concentrated flavor. Priorat, the color. I mean, I've never seen a Priorat. Look at how deep that color is. You can't see anything in it. Whereas this one, you can see how much more, especially when you look from the top, you can see how much more you can view in. Whereas this one, it's like, it's very, very deep, and you can see the sediment, the very, very fine sediment there. So that's our wine for today. I know that Romeo is real. I know you're on here. I know you're watching, man. I know you wanted to do that Ribera del Duero. Well, that's next time. So next time's Ribera del Duero. We're going to be doing that, and maybe Toro or maybe Rueda. I can't remember. Anyway, let's get into the stuff. What did we miss? What's happened? What's happened since I've been gone? Well, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. That was the first thing. She died. Yeah. She hasn't been dead or anything. She just died recently. But of course, this is like, really ramping up the tensions even further. And I love all these little stories they're saying, like, on her deathbed, her dying words were that she wanted Trump to wait until after the election to nominate somebody. Like, the sad thing is there are people who are actually retarded enough to believe that someone on their deathbed would this is my only request, is that Trump wait to nominate my replacement. I mean, it's just like absolutely ridiculous. I don't even know how to. But I've been seeing this from clients. I mean, a lot of girls in particular, mid 20s, up 25 to 20 to 35-year-old women, just losing it over the election. And then Ginsburg dying. It's like, poor Ginsburg. She was lifting those weights, inspiring all of us. I don't want to speak ill of the dead. I just she's been dead for a year. Anyone who's been following this knows that she hasn't been around for a while. No one's seen her, right? It's just all kind of funny in a certain sense, just the games that they play. It's looking like Barrett's going to be the replacement. I don't really have much of an opinion. I mean, I know a lot of the trad Caths love her. She's a Catholic, very anti-abortion. I mean, whatever. As far as I'm concerned, this is just, it's more tension that's going to be increased. But the Democrats have already pretty much, given up. They know they're not going to be able to stop it, and especially if Trump's appointing a middle-aged woman. I mean, it's just not going to be. It's not going to be like Brett Kavanaugh, where they're trying to turn this like frat boy situation. Okay, well, Brett's like represents all of our, sexual frustration and animosity. This is like middle-aged soccer mom, adopted 2 black kids from Haiti. It's kind of hard to touch. So she's going to probably sail through. Now, the question is, what does all of this stuff mean? What's going to happen? And I'll be honest. I mean, not that I'm going to admit to you guys, I'm not like as plugged in and on top of it as I was since getting out there in the wild, because coming back to it, it's just like, it feels even more than before. Like, I have to be honest with you, I am just really tired of it. I'm just kind of burned out of dealing with the lies and the neurosis that's going on. Like, I laugh about it all the time, but trying to really get myself worked up and care about this stuff is getting harder and harder, because it's so ridiculous to see the talking points get played out over and over and over again. Like, I mean, I think we all feel this, right? Like, I was talking to my wife about this yesterday. It's like, it's played out. this system is dead. And I think that for those of us who are living through this, who didn't live through maybe what happened, and I always have to try to be sympathetic with this. I try to raise a sympathy point to like being in the 60s. Like people were like, well, everything in the 50s was great. Like there must have been something that was there that people felt was like, this can't continue. Something is like not working here underneath the surface. And there's something about it that's too fake. It has to die. And so, you have these leaps of consciousness, and that was more of a reactive leap before. But now we're really entering a point where, I think people are just ready to build, and they're tired of engaging with people like all of us right here. We're tired of engaging with people who are stuck in a system that is clearly just completely morally and functionally bankrupt. And I really admire, the big guy over here's patience in having to bring us into this era, because it's so tedious having to deal with these children. They really are like children in terms of how they think. So, okay, so getting to sort of the some of the broader points here, let me just kind of check some boxes. So we got RBG dead. They're continuing to try to push the Civil War narrative, right? Trump's not going to accept the results of a transfer of power. You have these hack journalists constantly asking him this. And he's saying, well, there's not going to be a transfer, there's going to be a continuation. And he's raising up, you had this stuff with Ilhan Omar recently, Project Veritas, talking about ballot harvesting. There's a really legitimate question here. Is there going to be, like, what's going to happen with this election? Is there going to be a determination? How are things going to proceed with that? Are we going to actually have a conclusion on election night? And I think that the answer is certainly not. And I am genuinely not sure at this point, because a lot of these states are going forward with mail-in voting, and the fraud is out of control with it. And so he can continue to basically, raise awareness about it, and there's plenty of awareness, but the less purpose at this point is not to win the election. It's to basically create the illusion that Trump is taking power, and that there can be a civil war, that they can be just some pretext to start a civil conflict. And, I have seen people talk about the 14th Amendment and how this gives Trump the power to declare an insurrection, to arrest mayors and to arrest governors and stuff. And he may yet do that. I don't know, guys. I don't know. But I think that we have to be very cautious of anything that we see that says, okay, Trump can do this one heavy-handed thing legally that allows him to gain all this power and do whatever he wants. He could have done this stuff for a while. The whole purpose here is to prevent a backlash, right? So he only intervenes in the cities once there's a very, very clear pretext and things have gotten very, very bad. And so the people who have been stopping him from doing things, he's like, I'm here if you need me. While things are looking pretty rough, how much longer are you going to let things get worse? And everybody sees this progression. Yeah, so people are put this stuff out there, like Trump's going to use the 14th Amendment and he's going to arrest all these people. I do firmly believe that there will be arrests. I still believe that very much, but everything has to unfold naturally, which brings us to tonight in the debate. So Trump, I've actually seen him get some really good traction, making fun of Biden about, or also challenging him. Okay, you're going to take a drug test. No, he's not going to take a drug test. He refuses a drug test. Are you going to consent to checking for electronic implants to see if people are going to be feeding you lines? It's like, no, he doesn't agree to do that either. This is a better way to win, to just hammer him on the public stage and to really bring, to completely kind of discredit his ability to be a president, so that once basically you have this situation, how do I put this exactly? It's like they're not going to have a very easy job selling the perception that Trump lost, right? Things are going to be too ridiculous in their attempts. And then the hammer can start to fall. Like we saw today, more and more stuff is getting declassified. Donald Trump Jr. just put out today the information that was just declassified, I think, today about how the Obama administration was aware and the intelligence community participated in under Obama a premeditated smear about Trump Russia collusion in an attempt to distract from Hillary Clinton's server. Okay, so I know people are not paying attention. Like people who hate Trump aren't paying attention to this stuff. They don't care. But as this stuff leaks out more and more and more, I mean, it's very, very difficult for this to be a tenable position. And I know the media tries to do all this cover, etc. But like, I don't think I can tell you exactly how I know the exact details of how this is going to play out. But you know, I don't think it's if you want to have a clean win, like last case scenario, like worst case scenario, maybe Trump pulls some sort of thing with the 14th Amendment and using electors to gain power. But the point is that that goes to civil war, right? Or that goes to such a fractured nation that it's like he doesn't, it's like an occupational rule. And that's not the point. The point here is to transition away from the cabal. So they need to be isolated and eliminated. And the details of how that is going to happen, I don't know, but I think that there's going to be a series of events that make it untenable for Biden to basically be in a position of running for office. Right? Voter ID has always been an issue as well. But, you know, you have this stuff with Hunter Biden and the connections between, you know, Ukraine and the CCCP, right? All of this corruption that was going on with that. You have, what is it? So the mayor of Moscow's wife wires Hunter Biden $2 or $3.5 billion, $1 million. And then right afterwards, Crimea is annexed. I mean, there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of shit and corruption that's easy to just peck away at them. And then when they have no more credibility, you can really round them up. And I think that's it's starting to fall apart. I mean, I don't have any doubt about the only question here is how much do they really try to push this mail-in voting fraud? And if there's enough evidence, and we're at October and we're already getting evidence of mail-in voting fraud, you better believe that there's going to be so much of it pushed that if Trump does call some sort of state of emergency, he's going to have so much credibility to do so that it's not going to lead to conditions where everything, all hell's going to break loose. This is basically how I see it playing out. I think he has a real, like, his confidence compared to Biden's. I mean, Biden is like not taking any public appearances for like 48 hours, 72 hours. Like, what was it, 9 something a.m. on Saturday? He's done for the rest of the weekend. And you have Kamala Harris talking about like a Harris administration. I mean, I know people are voting against Trump just because he's Trump, and that's whatever. But I have never seen so many Trump flags. I've never seen so many Trump signs. And I'm in New Jersey, okay? In my hometown, it's definitely way more Biden, no question about that. But when you leave my hometown, which is very affluent, and you go to places that are not like the boonies, like we're talking about like upper middle class beach places. I mean, the Jersey Shore is plastered with Trump signs. Plastered with it. And remember, Trump supporters don't put their stuff out there. So, yeah, I've seen more, like, only barely any Trump signs in my town, and I've seen Biden signs, but I see way more no signs, which to me is an indication that even in my own town, that there's a lot more people who are there for Trump because we don't have a Trump sign. I don't want my dad to put one up. What's the point of putting one up? You're just going to attract like crazy people towards your house. No interest in doing that. And you better believe that, like, if we're not putting one up, how many other people do you think are like that? And I've also heard there were some like complaining letters to the editor in the town newspaper. And I'm emphasizing this because this is like what you would consider like shit lib Northeast town. Okay. Complaints letter to the editor, complaints in the newspaper because people were stealing Biden signs and vandalizing them. Okay. That's never happened in prior elections in this town. So there's a lot of stuff underneath the surface. And a lot of people feel like because of the media perception that they have tons and tons of backing, and it's really like not so much. So anyway, I don't really think that there's too much more stuff here. I mean, the Church of Satan, there was a op-ed about the Church of Satan really is, I support them now because they stand for human values. It's all this materialist drag, but we're gonna see, guys. We're gonna see how it plays out. I think tonight, the big thing, last kind of point to talk about, of course, is the debate. I think that the only negative we have here is that people have such low expectations of Biden. They think that Biden is pretty much a retarded vegetable. That if he doesn't shit his pants on stage, then they might consider it to be, that he performed well, and so that there's a perception issue here. But I think people also forget that Trump is, people also underestimate Trump. They always underestimate him. So I think we're in for a good fight tonight. I don't think Trump's going to fuck it up. I don't think he's going to fuck it up. Yeah, I'm looking for like the dribble down the leg, I'm looking for like the vacant kind of look. Maybe he gets angry and just like I mean, if it would be like a one of those 90s teen movies where like the kid has to go up and give a speech and he like pisses himself and creates some sort of trauma. Like that's I mean, it would just be over. Yeah, I would just be over. But I they're gonna hop him up on so many meds. I've heard a lot about some like off market Russian shit to try to give him some sort of cognitive. Because when I understand when you're going into dementia, you can give people drugs that will temporarily increase their cognitive state. And then, of course, it fades. And that's one of the reasons that they're taking him out of the spotlight is because some days he has no fucking idea where he is or what he's doing. So, anyway, guys, you got any questions? I'm happy to chill for a bit here. What else did I miss? I'm sure I missed a lot of stuff. I think he might drop out. Like, I actually see that as a possibility, but I don't know how they do that with the ballot. So maybe I don't know if he can drop out and what does that mean for the election. But no, what do you guys think? How cold did it get up there? The first night was actually the worst. So I was on Kittatinny Ridge. I took the New Jersey Appalachian Trail, and I took it all the way with a couple little side trails here and there, which is why it went, instead of being like 75, 76, it was closer to 80. But I took it from there to Greenwood Lake, New York. And there were moments when I was feeling really good. I'm like, I can get all the way to the Hudson River, but man, the fasted stuff really, really nails you. So those early days, I was on the Kittatinny Ridge, and I didn't realize my sleeping bag was good to 40 degrees. There's no question that night it was around freezing. But the big thing here was that there was winds constantly. I was right on the edge of a ridge and the winds were just blowing. And so with the wind chill factor, I mean, I was actually hallucinating the first night. Like you just couldn't, your dreams were like, it was like a feverish kind of state. It was pretty rough. Eventually what I learned was I had to not only wear every bit of clothing that I had, but I had to take all my socks and I had to put them inside all of my clothing. to give extra insulation. So I had about 8 pairs of socks on every night, and I was still cold. It wasn't until the last 2 days I was okay. I was okay temperature wise. Shiver a little bit, but okay. And that's because the temperature jumped about 10 degrees the last 2 days. I'm writing a long blog post in detail about this stuff. Yeah. The hardest day, guys, is the transition. I mean, to put it in perspective, day one, I did almost 11 miles, but I got a really late start. I was out 12:30 p.m. to almost 6, just shy of 6. I was hiking. I did about 11 miles. And it was all uphill. And then day two, I did 14 miles. You start late morning, I started to hit that. I was out of carbs. And anyone who's fasted for more than 48 hours knows that that sort of 48 to 72-hour period under normal circumstances, when you're hiking and burning calories, I think it got accelerated. When you're out of carbs, your body has to switch into ketosis. And being in ketosis is fine, but the transition is awful. You get headaches, and and I was trying to have electrolytes to make sure I didn't get it too bad. But then I had too many electrolytes, and so then I was getting diarrhea. So I was like shitting myself constantly, and it was awful, man. It was awful. It was definitely. I mean, I really felt like, Frodo and Sam on Mount Doom. No stimulants. I mean, I guess I had, under someone's advice on Twitter, I chewed on 2 coffee beans a day when I was there. I don't really think it did anything. I didn't have coffee. He said it was a homeopathic dose. It's a very, very low dose caffeine. I did not have any. I did take yohimbine, which was probably stupid with the cold because it makes you shiver more. But yohimbine, when you're fasted and you take it, it targets belly fat basically. So I did take that, but that's not a performance enhancer. That doesn't do anything for that. So I mean, really, I drank water. I drank water with electrolytes. Initially, too much electrolytes, but it was great. It was really great. I mean, after day two, when I felt like I was gonna, like, it was just such a slog. Day two, like the trekking poles saved me, because you'd want to just fall over sometimes, and the poles, you just lean on the poles. It started to get better. I mean, you couldn't really push yourself too fast, especially uphill. You'd just gas out immediately when you were fasted, but your mind became clear, and you just sort of had this understanding, like, slow and steady, like, I can do this. And even on day two, I was like, I can do this. Like, I never had any doubt that I could do it. But day two is like, this is going to be a terrible trip. It wasn't until day 5, when I had accomplished enough mileage already that I could cut back to 10 miles per day instead of like 12 to 13, that I was able to actually spend more time reading. Like the first 4 days, like, you just barely read at all. I mean, you're just focused on moving. So yeah, it was great, guys. I'm going to be talking about it at the 21 convention in a broader context. But my first meal was, well, I wanted my first meal to be chicken soup. My mom's homemade chicken or turkey soup. But my pregnant wife, fucking bitch, she ate all of it. She ate all that stuff. So we had none left. My mom, of course, joking. My mom, when she got my text, basically, she went out and she bought some soup from a really good place that does all their own kind of, like, it's homemade soup. But that was chicken tortellini. So it was close. I had a whole, I guess, quart of chicken tortellini soup, and I had some watermelon as well. But the main thing, honestly, in order of what was the worst, it was the cold, fatigue, like, especially with various muscles in my legs that started to, you started to feel hurt after a while. was hunger. Now, once it appeared, then I would think more about food. But prior to that, I was like, first thing I want to do is get a hot bath. Like, it's like you're just cold all day long. I don't know how else to put it. You're cold all day long. Um, because also, guys who haven't fasted, when you fast like this, your body temperature drops. I mean, it's much, much more difficult to thermoregulate when you're fasted. So it was a good trip. It was a good trip, and really just trying to take the lessons from the trip and try to integrate it into the life. You know, I talked earlier about how it feels like things are really played out, right? It feels like things are played out. But after being out there, they really feel played out for me, including my own personal patterns, things that I would just do, you know, like I'm happy. I got one of the things I got big feedback on was, with drinking, right? I'm I'm enjoying having some of this wine with you guys, but it's like it's very clear that I was drinking too much wine. I knew that, but when I was out there, I really got serious download with it. Same thing with coffee. Like you come back from this and you're like, it's like there's a vibration shift. Like I wanted to have soup, I wanted to have eggs, I wanted to have fruit and vegetables. I didn't really want to have a ton of meat. I didn't want to drink coffee or alcohol. And I've gradually have moved a little bit back into that, but you sort of feel these different states of consciousness. You sort of feel how your body, when it's cleaner, that it wants different things. I wanted more exercise, and then as I declined from it, it was like exercise. Oh, I don't know. It's really interesting to feel this out. But what was important about it is that I really tested myself, and I felt I was able to experience different levels of, I guess you could say, consciousness, but also just like how does my body respond? And so it created different benchmarks and awareness. And so I really got as feedback, like, you don't have to, like, this isn't about like never drinking, but it is about like, how do you use these things in your life? And I'm just really trying to pursue much more of a cleaner trajectory for myself. And in being out there, I mean, no dopamine, right? No dopamine at all. Like you just sit and you are in quiet. That's it. You sit and you're in quiet. You listen to the rustling of the trees in the wind. And then you feel it, right? And then you feel it. And you feel the divine in that. So, yeah. I was ready to come back by the last night, but you also miss it a little bit because there's a sense that this is where we were supposed to be. We're supposed to be in, like, the main thing I thought about is like, I want to go back there. I want to go back in nature, but I want to go with a good friend. And I don't want to do it fasted, but I want to like now try to live in nature and try to like hunt in, like, feed myself in that place. That was sort of the next step, I think. Um, but down the line. So anyway, guys, it was good talking as always. I'm gonna go grab some dinner. I fly out for 21 convention early in the morning, so I gotta get all settled before the debate tonight. Take care, my friends. I love you all.